Aux Champs-Élysées, au soleil, sous la pluie, à midi, ou à minuit, il a tout ce que vous voulez aux Champs-Élysées. And our episode begins with Sirach telling us the story of his life. As it turns out, his brother wasn't raptured and just walked away for a second because he had a bloody nose. We get a montage of society being crappy with a shot of home Syria, and this general crappiness is why Sirach wanted to construct his supercomputer.
Yeah, are we gonna get any new information with these flashbacks?
What do you mean?
Well, we already knew all of this. We knew why Sirach built his supercomputer. He already told us about it. Twice, in fact. Once at his house and once in Singapore. Why do we need this information again?
Well, does contradictory information count as new information? Anyway, we then jump to Sirach talking to the president of Brazil, telling him there's going to be a resistance movement in the north because the president was being shitty about manganese mining. Sirach tells him to cut it out. The president feebly pushes back, but Sirach tells him to stop since he controls whether he's president.
Yeah, it's really difficult to believe that Sirach is this invisible guy who no one knows anything about when he's flying around threatening heads of state with a dozen witnesses.
Anyway, we learn that Sirach and his brother started designing their computer, and they partner with Liam's dad in order to get a hold of Insight's data on individuals.
Didn't Liam say that his dad sketched out Rehoboam? This clearly shows that Sirach and his brother did it.
I guess Liam's dad lied. Anyway, Liam's dad then starts getting impatient that the computer isn't working, and he's ready to pull the plug. He even tells Liam that if he keeps staring at the computer, his brain will turn to mush.
Didn't Liam say his dad was obsessed with the system and cared for it deeply? That Liam knew he cared for it more than him?
I guess Liam's dad lied.
What? Why would someone feign interest in a computer over one's son? That doesn't make any sense. And he insults the computer in front of Liam.
Well, to be fair, he insults Solomon, not Rehoboam. Completely different. Anyway, we jump to the present where Sirach's people tell him that devices found with the Yakuza connect with devices in Jakarta, Berlin, San Francisco, and LA. Specifically, Liam Dempsey's residence.
Well, I have no idea what's going on in Berlin and Jakarta, but Delos headquarters is in San Francisco. That's clearly Charlotte Dolores we're talking about. Somehow she hasn't been outed?
Maybe we'll deal with that next time. Anyway, Sirach learns that Liam has disappeared with Dolores and wants to find them.
Wait a minute, how is Sirach just figuring out that Dolores was targeting Liam? Didn't Sirach send people to get Dolores right after Martin's failed hit on her? They clearly weren't sent by Martin since he was dead, so they must have been Sirach's. I mean, there was a quadruple homicide, a pretty big divergence. You'd think that someone would check the ambulance driving records to see that they picked up a super weird person of interest where Martin's chopper took off from and a half dozen of his guards lay dead. I mean, this is pretty basic data. In fact, if Sirach weren't looking into it, why weren't the police?
That's because it's all in a simulation. You feeling all right, Chad? You look a little off. Yeah, I've taken this great drug called genre. It makes me much more deep and interesting. All right, if you say so. Anyway, we next jump to Dolores, Jesse, and Liam walking through the city. Jesse asks why they have kidnapped Liam when they already have stolen his money, and Dolores says that she wants information on her enemy, which requires access to the lower levels of Rehoboam.
Didn't Liam specifically say that he doesn't have access to the lower levels of Rehoboam and only read-only access to the upper? That was a pretty big reveal in the first episode of the season. No one knows what the computer is doing except for Sirach.
Yeah, Anyway, Liam says that there's no way he's giving her access, and so Dolores decides to take out Liam's records glasses and show him that she's special and not in the system.
Hold on, Liam has glasses that tell him everything on someone just by looking at them? Why didn't he or Martin use them on Dolores when they were dating for months? Did the writers of this episode even watch the first episode of the season?
Well, Dolores then threatens to make Liam look bad by framing him as an outbidder of Sirach for Delos. And then Liam says that his access isn't enough and it requires going to the node and bypassing on-site security.
Again, this contradicts everything in the first episode. Liam doesn't have access to the lower levels of Rehoboam. But that aside, isn't this whole mission pointless? Doesn't Dolores already have access to profiles through Dolores Martin? I mean, she knows everything about Jesse, for example.
Maybe Sirach's profile is harder to get at. Whatever the case, Liam takes a look at Jesse's profile, which freaks him out, and he decides to drug Jesse. Jesse starts experiencing genres,
and we spend a whole lot of time looking at Jesse's drugged out face.
Yes, well, Dolores' bike arrives with a mystical bag of holding, and a car filled with Sirach's goons arrive. The gang goes on the run, however, a computer system shuts down their car and locks them inside.
Sirach can shut down cars and lock people inside? Why didn't he do that to that ambulance? This is so Westworld. The antagonists are monitoring everything and have total control. Or they don't, when it's convenient to the plot.
Anyway, Sirach's goons fire on the car, and so Liam passes over his access key so Dolores can get the car going again. Machine guns spray at open targets, but of course no one is hit, and Jesse shoots a tracking missile that blows up some goons. Dolores and Jesse get out of their car for a firefight, as Dolores' bike kamikazes some more grunts. The professional henchmen can't hit the side of a barn, while Dolores doesn't even have to aim. And then Jesse's criminal friends arrive to save them.
What? Where did they come from?
Well, they say you rang, so I imagine Jesse called them on the phone?
When? Jesse was drugged up and Dolores was controlling the car and missiles. There was literally no time.
Maybe Jesse called them back in the tunnel?
How does that timing work out? Jesse didn't know anything about Dolores' plan. He didn't even know why they'd kidnapped Liam in the first place. But somehow he knew he was going to need muscle later on? In this exact location. And how did they even find them? Dolores and Jesse only went on the run in a car because they ran into Sirach's men. How on earth would Jesse and Dolores know they would race across the city to this exact spot, which seems to be just where the bike happened to catch up with them? And what's even more baffling is that after this firefight, the criminals play no role in Dolores' plan. None. They are useless. Somehow Jesse and Dolores predicted the future and called on them to come to this exact spot to provide 3 seconds of effort in a firefight.
Well, I mean, Dolores also needed someone to expose to since Jesse is on drugs. Or they're all a figment of Jesse's drug-induced imagination. Or this is all a simulation. Anyway, next Liam scoffs at Dolores as he thinks the access he gave her is read-only unless she's at the node, and she can't be in 2 places at once, as if the idea of having a partner is ridiculous. Which brings us to Martin Dolores, who simply goes into Insight, walks up to the screen, and gets all of the information.
So now they're saying that Liam had full access to everything the whole time. He could have walked into his own company and looked at the lower levels of Real Bomb at his leisure. That whole speech about him not knowing what's going on was simply because he never bothered to walk up to the system and use it? Fine.
Bernard is a spectator to all of this and tries to get Dolores to betray Dolores. Anyway, Dolores and company then go to the subway and Dolores lifts her arms weirdly as she goes through the turnstile.
How did she know that Liam's friend would have a button that would let them in? Did they talk about this beforehand?
I guess. I mean, they could have just jumped the turnstiles too. No technology needed. Anyway, we then go into the past with Sirach and learn that he made Liam's dad his fortune. Sirach figured out how to predict the stock market, invested in hedge funds, and made $100 million.
Hedge funds? Hedge funds are designed around risk reduction. That's what hedging is. In fact, a fund is designed around risk reduction too. If you know the future and are confident in it, there's no risk. In fact, if you know the future, you can just buy a certain stock low and sell it high. Simple as that. You don't need any fund.
Well, Liam's dad was apparently only interested in the money and not the real potential of the computer, so Sirach locks him out.
Okay, this again goes against what Liam has told us. Liam said that his dad was very interested in Real Bomb and thought that every human should have a path. And if Liam's dad was locked out, shouldn't Liam have been locked out? This entire episode is nonsense. Why would Liam have access that his dad didn't?
Whatever the case, Sirach discovers that all projections show society falling apart in 200 years because of outlier individuals, of which Sirach's brother is a member, and so they must be dealt with. We then get back to the subway where Dolores wants to release people's future data to them. Liam thinks that's dangerous as people shouldn't know their fate. He then chooses to antagonize hardened criminals by telling them their futures are crap. And then Jesse tells a story about catching rats when he was in the military. Fill a bucket low and a rat gives up and drowns, painlessly, but fill the bucket high and it has hope so it swims around for hours suffering.
What the hell is he talking about? Drowning painlessly? What fucking world is he from? Drowning is painful. If you want to kill rats without much suffering, use snap traps.
Anyway, Dolores tells Martin Dolores to release everyone's data, and so he does. And everyone becomes distraught.
So everyone on the train's life just sucks? No one has average person allowed to have kids and a stable job, projected to die of old age between the ages of 80 and 95? No one? No one has that.
Anyway, Liam then comments that all of the people's lives in the station are ruined, and Dolores, to the shock of everyone, says that she sent the data to the whole world.
Yeah, that could possibly be the dumbest reveal of all time. We all assumed it was to everyone the first time. I'm not sure why anyone would assume it was limited to the station. Also, how is it daytime? How much time has passed? Were they riding the train all night? Why was there a little kid on the train in the middle of the night? Liam was kidnapped in the evening and now it's 10 hours later? The crew walked through a tunnel, got in a car chase, and rode the subway. How does that take 10 hours? How long did it take Martin Dolores to download some data and send it off? And Serac didn't send anyone to Rehoboam that whole time.
Anyway, we see society falling apart, and then some of Serac's men shoot Dolores, and Jesse is super shocked to see her survive, even though he saw that the first time they met. So next we have Serac totally pissed that the world is falling apart, and we go into the past, and learn that 10 years after the creation of their partnership, Liam's dad got curious. He finds one of Serac's correction centers, where Serac is trying to make outlier individuals less impulsive.
Wow, Serac looks like crap. 10 years and he goes from looking 30-something to looking 50-something?
Well, he did have radiation exposure.
So did his brother, and he looks the same.
Next we get back to Martin Dolores, who tells Bernard of Serac's correction facilities. Then Stubbs arrives and gets his ass kicked one more time. Bernard takes control of the situation and wants to know everything, but conveniently Serac's crew arrives to question Martin.
They've all only arrived now. Where's Stubbs been for 10 hours? And Serac's people have been chasing Dolores all night and only sent people to Insight now? I swear, every single character in this show is incompetent.
Anyway, Martin Dolores takes Serac's people upstairs. We find out Martin was working for Serac, and then Martin Dolores decides to blow everyone up.
We saw Dolores take down a dozen people this episode, and Martin Dolores didn't think he could take on Serac's small crew. Okay. Of course, Martin working for Serac makes his oversight of Dolores' background check in the first episode even more egregious. He had access to the most powerful computer in the world that instantly gives everyone's backstory, and somehow he lets Liam date Dolores for months.
Whatever the case, Bernard and Stubbs escape, and Bernard speaks the overwhelmingly obvious, that he thinks he's part of Dolores' plan. Next we get to the crew walking along the beach to the airfield. Jesse inquires about Dolores' wound, and she tells him that they can talk about it later, though I guess the incident in the ambulance was fine. And then Dolores announces that they don't need Liam anymore.
Now she says this? They don't need him now. They didn't need him the minute he gave over his access. I have no idea why they've been marching around with him for the past 8 hours. Or why Jesse's criminal friends are with them. Aren't they eager to take a nap at this point?
Anyway, Liam, like an idiot, starts antagonizing hardened criminals, calling them scum. I suppose he just doesn't have anything left and is acting suicidal.
Well, in the real world, there's insurance protection on fraudulently seized assets. Plus, he could likely sue his banks and financial institutions for having crappy security, not to mention his IRAs and CDs that can't be sold immediately. Really, he's financially fine.
Anyway, the situation escalates with Jesse trying to calm people down, but Liam freaks out because Jesse is such a bad person. Jesse starts having flashbacks, and Liam ends up shot in the stomach by a bullet aimed at his head. We then get a bunch more flashbacks showing that Jesse was likely in one of Serac's readjustment centers, and then Liam dies.
Honestly, who would antagonize hardened criminals like that?
No one, man. Jesse's friends are figments of his imagination. He shot Liam, that's why the bullet hole's in his stomach. Or this is all a simulation, or Ford planned it all.
Well, that would explain why it's sunset already.
We then go back in time and find out that Liam's dad had a problem with the centers, but Serac only built them because within the population of outliers exists an individual who will destroy humanity. Liam's dad says that he will tell the world about the trials and the extinction event, though Serac says that every scenario where that happens leads to human extinction. The two see a plane crash, which turns out to be Liam's dad's plane, and Serac kills him to make it look like an accident. Dolores observes all of this, and Serac tells Dolores that knowing his past won't help her too much, and she disagrees. Then Serac gets angry that Rehoboam's predictions are showing many more divergences.
Shouldn't that have happened hours ago when she released the data? Why would it be spiking now?
And in our final scene, a delivery is made for Jesse, and Jesse wonders if people should really know their future. Dolores said that he wanted to know his future, and Jesse says that he's not like other people. And the episode ends with Dolores saying that neither is she.
Oh god, is that an attempt at a badass line? Because it's so nonsensical. You see, there's a difference between a trend and a single instance. If I said, swans are generally white, and the response is, that swan is black, the respondent is completely missing the point. And that's exactly what's happening here. Jesse is wondering if generally people shouldn't know their future. The trend. And Dolores points out that Jesse wanted to know his. An instance. And then Jesse responds that he's not like other people, emphasizing that the instance is different from the trend. He's not like other swans. He's talking about people generally. And what's Dolores' response? Neither am I. It's the equivalent of responding, that's another black swan. Jesse was wondering about people generally, and he's getting no friggin' answer. It's just some badass sounding gibberish. How are we gonna feed dragons? What do they eat? Whatever they want. Oh, that solves everything. Let's just move on. Except that Jesse is about to be on a plane for hours with this psychopath. Will he seek clarity? Hey, I was actually speaking about people in general. You know that, right? No, that's probably not going to happen, and I bet he won't ask Dolores about getting shot or why she wasn't in the system or her plans or any of that. Nope, he's just going to check out and look at some in-flight entertainment. Oh, Friends Season 3, I'll just watch that. It's not like the future of humanity is on the line.
Oh, how could this day get any worse?
What? Coworkers think I'm a dick? Damn it.